Here with more on where the hotspots are is Dixon Doll, co-founder of venture capital firm DCM. So, Dixon, given the unrest that we're seeing in Egypt, there's a newfound uncertainty about risk appetite. Do you see full demand for these 12 issuances this week?
I actually am not as concerned about the developments in the Middle East in terms of an adverse impact on IPOs. So I think it'll boil down to the specific companies and how well they tell their stories. But in general, there's a very strong demand by institutional investors for good companies with unusually good growth prospects.
So you haven't seen it hamper appetite for some of those risks. Talk to me about where you expect the most activity to be.
I think most of the activity in 2011, we did the forecast last week calling for 85 or 90 new IPOs, and I think a large amount of the demand will be for good companies coming out of China. Mm-hmm. That was a very strong segment last year, and I think that'll continue this year. Social networking related companies here in the U.S., as well as anything relating to cloud computing and storage, I think will also be in high demand.
So DCM, the firm you work with, is a venture capital firm. So you've invested in, 120 companies over the years. You've got about $2 billion under management. What's the sales point for an IPO right now versus selling a company? Because when there's a public listing, the owner often has to continue to hold on to part of that asset.
Well, I think the demand, or at least the desire of entrepreneurs to take their company public has always been one of the major drivers. Through the economic downturn of the last several years, when the institutional investors were on the sidelines, fulfilling that dream of becoming public was very difficult.
But is it about the company needing to raise cash, or is it about the ownership really just wanting to divest an asset?
I think it's a combination of both. Usually the IPO is viewed not as the end game, but the beginning of a new phase in a company's evolution. And so, yes, it does raise a significant amount of cash, but it also adds a lot of administrative burdens, for compliance and all the things that we know about. So that's been a barrier to having as many IPOs as we would like to see over the past few years.
LinkedIn looks like it's going to be first to market as the social network to go public. Which other companies do you expect to have IPOs in that space?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about Facebook, and I think that Facebook will eventually definitely go public
next year.
There'll be others. I don't know if it'll be this year or not. Some would argue that Facebook is already partially public by virtue of the fact that people are able to sell shares through some of the secondary markets like Second Market and so on. But they'll do it in when they feel the timing is right, and I think it could be toward the end of this year, but we'll just have to see how that plays out.
So is it the second half of the year where we'll see the most activity with Skype and others?
I think the activity is going to be more uniformly distributed across the year. So I'm not looking for any big spikes in the second half. We're starting the year on a very strong note, and I think it should continue, barring external geopolitical events or things like that.
All right. Thanks very much.